Hello, friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to Code Katas, episode 37. Look at all those wonderful drops. Here we go. Let's say hello to everyone, then we'll get started. Boo, says Andrew Lane. Hello, Daniel Garden. Don't forget to drink water. Hello, the big stonk. TI-84 calculator. Don't know what that's about, but hello. Hello, Carolinda. Hello, Elka. Hello, Des. You are here for the Code Katas show. We're going to solve some coding problems. Hello, Azerbaijan. Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Doc. Hello, Warhawk. Welcome, everyone. So if you're new to the show, you can go to github.com/codinggarden/code-katas. All of the code katas I've solved in past episodes are here. All the ones that I solved tonight will be here as well. And if you have a suggestion for a kata for me to solve, you can submit an issue. And most likely, we'll actually pull from the issues today. We'll probably start with the 6Q, which is easier than some of the other ones listed there. So if you're new to all of this, you can go to codewars.com. This is a website that lists many different user-submitted programming challenges in many different languages. I like to solve them in JavaScript. And they range in difficulty from fairly easy, which is an 8Q, all the way up to the very hard, which is a 1Q. And we're probably going to start around a 6Q today. What's up, Crit? Welcome. Alka, hello. Daniel says, you should make some kind of Christmas overlay if you plan on streaming around Christmas. Yeah, I don't know when, though. Maybe this weekend. Maybe tonight. Maybe we solve like 2 katas and then we build a Christmas tree overlay, because that would be fun, honestly. We've talked about before, instead of the drop game here, we could have a little Christmas tree, and your drops become ornaments on the tree. That would be cool to make. Hello, John D. Welcome. Hello, Bao. Hello, Crit. 3:29 in Portugal. Hopefully you get some sleep pretty soon. Hello, Prakar. Hello, Zach. Welcome. Let's look through the issues that have been submitted. We're going to look at the 6 numerical palindrome and playing with digits. Numerical palindrome sounds familiar. I might have solved this one before, but we'll see. This was submitted by UTwitface, also known as Andrew Lane in the chat. Wait, not that one. This one. Oh, I guess I haven't trained on it before. Cool. A palindrome is a word, phrase, number, or other sequence of characters which reads the same backwards as forward. Examples of numerical palindromes are 2332, 110011, etc. For a given number, num, write a function which returns an array of all the numeric palindromes contained within each number. The array should be sorted in ascending order, and any duplicates should be removed. Andrew Lane is streaming? What? What? I didn't know you streamed. Let's go look at Andrew Lane. Go. I see a black screen. That's funny. But yeah, I didn't, have you streamed before? I don't think you have. Cool. I'll tune in sometime. But this one looks fun. I think we'll do this one. This is a numerical palindrome. So you're given a number, and you have to find all of the palindromes inside of that number, which is pretty clever. It's slightly more interesting than just determining if a number itself is a palindrome. So I think we'll start there. And let's look at this one that was submitted by Carolinda, who's also in the chat. Hello, Carolinda. I have done this one before, playing with digits. Some numbers have funny properties. For example, 89 is 8 to the first power plus 9 squared, which is equal to 89 times 1. Given a positive integer n written as ABCD, add a positive integer p. We want to find a positive integer k if it exists, such as the sum of the digits of n taken to the successive powers of p is equal to k times n. So I have solved this one before. Let's see when I did solve it. If you go to code-katas.now.sh, you can see all of the katas I've solved before. And this one is called Playing with Digits. They might have changed the names. Yeah, sum of digits, digital root, I think. Yeah, let's look at the URL, because that has the original name. Maybe I haven't solved it. Playing with sets. Digits? Oh, maybe I haven't. That's interesting that it already said I had trained on it. So maybe we'll do that one second. Because I believe the one Um, oh, Carolinda's was submitted first. Yeah, I haven't done it. Okay, we'll vote on it. Which one should I do first? I'm gonna do both of them, but we'll do a quick little poll. And actually, can I do polls on Twitch, or do you have to be like a affiliate or something to do that? Yeah, I don't think I can do polls on Twitch. We're gonna do a straw poll. Maybe that's why it said train again, because I've at least clicked into it before, but that's interesting. So should I do playing with digits first? Or numerical palindrome? That one. If you'd like to have a say in which kata I try to solve, vote now. Vote now, vote now. Vote now, and I'll catch up on the chat. Yeah, I did talk about the Christmas tree overlay last time, so that would be fun to build. Maybe I'll do like these 2 katas and then one more submitted one. There's no 5. Let's see what this one is. Please solve this problem. It's not Code Wars. I don't know. Maybe we do these 2 and then we make an overlay. That would be fun. And Andrew, did you fix your black screen? Because I couldn't see you. And thanks for the follow, Feisty Buzz. Welcome to the stream. Hola, Emir. Welcome. Warhawk says, I kind of don't like that Andrew uses a drop bot he created, as it's kind of unfair to other people. Okay, Andrew, you must release your drop bot as open source or you will be banned. I don't know if you're still listening, but you must release your drop bot for other people to use. That's the compromise there. Because, I mean, the fact that he coded something to play the game, I think that's pretty cool. It's true, Alka. Technically, a black screen is streaming. May not be actual content. Oh, no! No! That was a good plan. That was a great plan. That's pro. That's so pro. Oh, okay. I've been rickrolled. Andrew, DM me your address. I'll send you some stickers. Dang it! Dang it! That was genius level. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Zach says, what project in your whole career are you most proud of? I've said this before, but I would say my students. So when I was an instructor of full stack web development, like the fact that I would bring students in that knew absolutely nothing about programming. 6 months later, they would get jobs in industry. I'm really proud of that. I taught 6 or 7 classes, saw hundreds of students. So that's the project, the people project that I'm the most proud of. Great work, Andrew. Emotes in the chat for Andrew. I got rickrolled. And hello, memes. Welcome. Yeah, what's up, the big stunk? Yeah, so we're gonna try to do that one. First stream. Motivation maxed out says, hi CJ, in React, can you quickly explain how to pass a button click back up to a parent? I can't seem to get it done, and my form makes React's re-render. I just don't understand how to do it. Yeah, so this is tricky. So basically, you have a function in a child component that you want to get back up to the parent. What you can do is you pass a function down to the child, and for illustrative purposes, this might make it a little bit more sense. You could pass a function down that's called set child function. So basically, you pass a function down to the child, and when the child mounts, like in component in mount, you invoke that function, like set child function, and pass it a reference to the function that you want the parent to call. And then in the parent, when that function is called, you put it on the instance or you put it on state, and then later on, if you need to call that function, you call that function. Hopefully that helps. There was a lot of hand waving there, but basically, you pass a function down. In the child, you invoke that function with the reference to the function you want the parent to know about, and then in the parent, you set it to a property so that you can call it later. Yeah, and there's the poll. Vote on the poll if you'd like to have a say in which kata I try to solve. Yeah. And thanks for the follow, Dane Alex. Yeah, you got me good, Andrew. Like, that was... I bet you've been plotting that all day. Like that was pro. That was pro level. Man, okay. Yeah, good game. Yeah. Life isn't fair in general. It's true. And it is cool, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, if Andrew is if Andrew is just dropping basically every 30 seconds, then yeah, it's unfair. Yeah, we got rickrolled. I mean, I got rickrolled. You got rickrolled via me. Hello, Harsh. Welcome. Hello, Biddick. Doc says, check out my View app. Are you trying? Like, please don't try to rickroll me. Rickroll me. one, one, one rickroll is enough for one stream. Well, will someone let me know? Is this a safe link to click? Yeah. How do they get jobs with no experience? Some bootcamp? No, it's all about having a project portfolio. So, the company that I was working at and teaching at, we do have like hiring partners. So that's people that typically hire from us, but the students still had to interview and had to show that they had skills. So, typically, the fact that they had a portfolio would allow them to get a job. Now, the students we had past lives, so they might have already had a degree in something. It just wasn't software development. So, I mean, I've taught people that were lawyers, accountants, waiters, bartenders, people that work in retail, people that they've had a past life and they probably got a degree already, and now they wanted to change where they were working. So, even though they didn't have experience in software development, they did have prior experience. So that's something to say. But it's mainly having a project portfolio because our curriculum was project based. So by the end of the 6 months, they had at least 4 projects to showcase. Hello, Chad. What's up? Gardeners. I like that. It's like gardeners, but gardeners. That's good, Chad. Great work. Yeah, that was a genius rickroll. Can you whip up a create react app? I'll save this for later, and if we have time, then yeah, it would be fun to show because it's an interesting concept. Cool. Yeah, great work. He got me because he said he was streaming, and then I went to his Twitch channel, and it was the rickroll video playing. But yeah. That link is clean, so clean. Okay. The sound is off. It doesn't. Come on. Come on. Does it count? Let me know in the chat. Did I just get rickrolled? Man. And actually, I'm very curious because he says I can check it with curl. Okay, let's copy this because I'm curious what I get back if I curl it. Wow. That's so good. Oh man. Okay. Wow. We got some pro level trolls in the chat here. Yeah. All right, we gotta start solving some katas. Hello, Dane. Welcome. It's been far. You created that? I've heard of somebody that did something like that before, but you created it? That's awesome. Props to Doc. Yeah. If you want some, both Doc and Andrew, if you want some stickers, DM me your address. I will send you some stickers, and hopefully it'll get to you before Christmas. I'm gonna try to send out a batch of stickers this weekend. Well, how's that work? Might make it there. Yeah, that was cool. That's some good rickrolling. All right, where's the poll? How's the poll doing? Wait, did I lose the poll? Here it is. There's only 5 votes. Keep voting. Some of you might have missed the poll. I mean, I'm about to start coding regardless, but let's get a couple more votes in there. I forgot to rub it. Yeah, it's true. I got rickrolled right when I sent the poll out. Yeah. Now I just thought like I should. I'm not even gonna say it. Yeah, cool. 7 votes. All right. While this voting is happening, let's create a React app because that would be fun to show. Pass functions around. It's a tie. It's a tie. I really should just solve one of them, but it's okay. And so this is the terminal rickroll that Doc did. I'm gonna look at the code while that thing's generating. So if we look at the index, yeah, we're gonna do both. It's just a matter of which one I do first. Okay, so accept any request, and then we need to determine. So if it's not desktop, and if you click it from oh my goodness, that's so clever. So if you clicked that link in the Twitch chat, it just takes you to my channel. Where is it? Yeah, so if you click it here, never mind. There's something like that going on. Where if it's not desktop and the refer ends with Twitch, the hover preview. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have FFC. Otherwise, just redirect to the rickroll. And then this is the terminal rickroll. So there's a bunch of frames, and we go to frame.js. I'm guessing it reads in some data. Yeah, data.json has all of the frames that are passed through. You have the frame somewhere? Oh, generate it. Ah, I see. So you're actually generating them from the MP4 file. Cool. Cool. It's fun stuff. All right. A description of the streak? You mean like how many times I've been rickrolled? Is that what you mean? Okay, so there was a question from, who was it? Motivation Maxed Out, who basically asked, how can I get a function that's in a child component in React to a parent component? So let's demonstrate that. Well, that didn't work. Oh. Gotta update my Create React app. Maybe I will do this at the end of the stream. Yeah. Hello, Bob. Welcome. Hello, Slyniz. Welcome. You're rock. You're so efficient and nice. Appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna do it. That was a nice compliment. Thanks for the follow, Influke. Yeah, let me know what you meant by this, Slyniz. Like, what streak are you talking about? And thanks for the follow, oh Lord Almighty. Welcome. Okay. Let's try generating that app again. Wow, there's a lot happening here. What is happening? Yeah, I guess apparently the Create React app has like a new template-based thing. Okay, let's start it up. Oh, description of the stream. I have a link to the GitHub repo. Thought that might be enough. But let's create some components. So we have a React app right here. Let's create a components directory. And then we're going to create what we'll call the parent component. This is going to be very generic. And we're going to create another component called the child component. And let's see, is our React app up and going? There it is. We have a React app. So in our parent component, we're going to render the child, but we need a function that we can call later on. So I don't think I have the React autocompletes in here, but let's bring in React. And we'll create a basic little function component. I guess motivation, are you using hooks? Or are you using like class-based stuff? Because I could do it either way. Let me know. I guess it would probably be class-based because they have functions. We're going to make classes. I mean, technically, you could still create functions with hooks, but I'm guessing that you're using classes. So we're also going to bring in component from React. The render function here is just going to say like an h1. This is the parent. Cool. And then we'll export it by default. Yeah, I got rickrolled so good. Whew. I can imagine you all are just plotting. You're like, we're so ready to rickroll me. So we're gonna put the link or put the component right here. So in our app, which is our top level component, let's import in the parent component. Created a server for discussing it? Wow. Wow. So we're going to bring in components / parent component, and parent component will be rendered in the top level app. So we're going to throw that right here. Cool. And we should see this is the parent. Great. Now the parent wants to render the child. So let's make a child component. We're just going to copy what we have in the parent. So this is the child component. And this will be like an h3 that says this is the child. Cool. Now the parent component will import the child and render it. And so right below the h1, we'll actually render the child component. So we'll have a nice little div. Can't type today. This is the parent, this is the child. Great. So now, what's the issue here? So what Motivation Maxed Out was asking about is, let's say your child component has a function. It's called do the thing in the child. And we'll say the thing was done in the child. Now, your child component has this function, but you want your parent component to call this function. How do we make that happen? Now, what I'm suggesting is that you actually pass down a function as a prop to the child component that allows it to pass that function back up. So right now, if you think about it, there's really no way for the parent component to call that function, right? It just can't. You can't really get access to it, even with props or anything like that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a function called get the function from the child. And it's going to take in a function, and then we'll do something with the function. Cool. Now, this function, get the function from the child, we're going to pass that into the child component. So we're going to say, we can just call it that. So get the function from the child is get the function from the child. So we're passing... we're passing that component, or sorry, that function down to the child component. It's doing some weird formatting things, but we're passing that function down to the child. We'll say this dot get the function from the child. And now in the child component, we're going to actually execute that function. So in the child component, we have a component did mount. And in component did mount, we should have access to this.props. So let's just log this.props in the child component, and we should see that that function that got passed down, get the function from the child. So if we look in the DevTools, we see this is props, and it has a prop on there, get the function from the child. So what we do in component did mount is we say this.props get the function from the child, and now we pass a reference to the function. So this is the function that I want to give to the parent, so I'm going to pass it right here. I'm going to say this.do the thing in the child. So now get the function from the child is passed a reference to the function. Notice that we're not invoking it. We're simply just passing a reference to this function. So now over here and get the function from the child, we will actually get access to it. So if we log that here, now when the component mounts, in the parent, we now have that do the thing in the child function, and we can do something with it. We could set it on state. We also could just set an instance property. It's really up to you. We could just say like this.childfunc equals that function. And now that we have it on the instance of the component, we can use it later on. So let's do that here. Let's just have like an onClick. And what I can do is call this.childfunc. So let's walk through what's happening here. So get the function from the child is a function in the parent that accepts a function and sets it as a property. We pass that function reference down to the child, and then in the child, when it mounts, we invoke that function and pass the reference to the function that we want the parent to have access to. So we do that. And now that we've done that, this instance has the property this.childfunc. So when we click the h1, which is in the parent, it should call the function that's in the child component. Cannot add property childfunc object is not extensible. Okay, let's do, I guess we can add like a state property. So we'll have childfunc on state, and here we'll do, oh, actually that makes sense because we would need the render function to run again, so we have the latest value of this.childfunc. So we'll say this.setState, and we're going to set childfunc to be that function. And then right here we need to do this.state.childfunc. Doesn't like it? Oh, this.setState is not a function, of course, because we need to bind this function so that this.setState makes sense right here. So if we do bind this, that function will be bound to the this of the parent, and then when this gets called, it should work. I think it works. So now if we click the parent, it calls the function that actually lives inside of the child. This is very convoluted. I'll push the code up. There might be other ways to do this. And if you're not working with like Redux or something like that, you've probably coded yourself into a situation where your child components have functions that your parent might need. But if you're building an app with like Redux or something like that, typically all of the functions will exist higher up. They don't really exist in the children, so you wouldn't have to do something like this. Cool. So I'll push this code up. Hopefully that helped. I think Motivation Maxed Out was the one that asked the question. But yeah. Explain the bind. Yeah, I'll do that. Hello, Majestic Guy. Welcome. Yeah, there were a lot of Rickrolls. Chad is saying, has anyone messed with MobX? It's reactive state management and feels very different from Redux. Still trying to figure out the best way to use it. I haven't used it, but I've looked into it. Like, MobX is basically if you want to use Vue, but you're in React. So MobX basically stole the playbook from Vue.js. The way that you manage state in MobX is very similar to Vue.js and Vuex. And it's really cool. If I had a choice, I probably would use MobX over Redux because it allows you to mutate state. Well, you do what appears to be mutating state, which under the hood, MobX will actually do the correct state updates and everything. But it's very similar to Vue, where you don't have this set state and copying data everywhere. Yeah. Saving the precious memories. Did anyone clip it? Somebody can clip it. Yeah, let's drink some water. The extension is called import cost. It's really nice for front-end code because this is telling you that the React thing that I'm importing in is 3.4 kilobytes when it's gzipped. Okay. Jessica has a story. Craziest thing happened to me today. Long story short, I created a scanner to find vulnerabilities / open databases to aid in finding bug bounties. I found a digital asset management company and a personal crypto account wide open to the internet with a total of 301 million in crypto that I could have stolen if I was a piece. Wow. That's pretty crazy, Majestic Eye. Thanks for being one of the good guys, I guess. I mean, probably should have just kept the money, right? I don't know. I want to change parent state based on button click in child. Yeah, so basically at this point, you now have access to child func. Oh, you want to... That's different. If you want to change the parent state based on a button click in a child, then you can just pass a function down which will update state. So something like this, update parent state with value. And then here we say this dot set state. And some value. I should come up with better names. I don't know why I'm doing all this generic naming. But update parent state, you just pass that function down. So not only do we pass that down, we can say update parent state equals this dot update parent state dot bind this. And now in the child component, when something happens, it can call this dot props dot update parent state. That's the easier way to do it. Oh yeah, someone mentioned that it was unfair that you have a drop bot going. So I said, if you want to keep your drop bot, open source the code so other people can use it too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was React. We're gonna get to code kata soon. Yeah. It makes sense, Team React, hello, Andres. Yep, so in Vue.js, you wouldn't have to pass a function down. You could just emit, and emit works on like names. So you just emit a string value, and in the parent, you can listen for when that thing is emitted, which is nice. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so let's talk about the bind. So if I remove the bind right here, and I remove the bind right here, first of all, this one breaks. So I'm passing down get function from the child to the child component, and the child component is calling that function when it mounts. So right here is where things are going to go wrong, because it's going to call get the function from the child, which goes in here, and then inside of here, this is undefined. So let's see what the error is. This dot set state is not a function. And if we log this, let's see what we get. Actually, so this is a little bit more complicated. We can see that when we log this, it's actually the child component. Let's add some other things in here just so we know that it's, well, or is it? Maybe not, but basically the this value is not the instance of the component itself, so we bind it so that it is later on. So one thing I'll do is, instead of binding it in the render function, is in the constructor, we can bind the functions here. What is this saying? Useless constructor. That's fine. But we'll say this dot get the function from the child dot bind this. It equals that. And this dot update parent state equals this dot update parent state to bind this. So what bind does is it creates a new function. So this is going to return a new function where when it's invoked, the context is this. And right now, because we're in the constructor, this is equal to the instance of the parent component. So later on, when this function is invoked, this actually is the parent component. And when we call set state, it makes sense that we're updating the state here. And similarly, later on, if we were to call update parent state, because we pre-bound it, the this value is going to be the parent component instance. So that should work. And now we can click it. All that stuff works. The reason I'm binding in the constructor versus binding inside the render function is the thing to think about in React is your render function runs a lot. And so every time it runs, it's invoking this.updateParent.bind this. So it's creating a brand new function every single time. But if we pre-bind it in the constructor, now these values are the same. So it potentially might have better performance in terms of updates. But yeah. For sure. So that's binding. Yeah, so bind is for changing the context of the function. And it actually returns a new function, which is why I'm invoking it and storing it back into itself, because we're pre-binding it. How's that poll doing? Okay, we'll do that one first. Yeah, MobX is pretty cool. You should check it out. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Redux is pure pain. It's just so cumbersome. Like, there are better ways to do it. I don't know why people keep reaching for it. MobX, my company, is the gold star on it. Wow. How do you manage a large front-end application in React? Code reviews. I mean, I have React applications right now that have literally hundreds of components. Yeah, I use folder by feature. So there are a lot of sub parts of the application, and each of those sub parts of the application are actually like a folder in my directory of React components. I have a shared component library. It's not something I can talk about like in 2 minutes. Yeah, for sure. and honestly, motivation, I think what you really want is the easier thing, where you have this function, update parent state. So it's the thing that needs to update the parent state on click inside of the child. And inside of the child, you now have access to this.props.update parent state. So you could add like an on click right here. Wow. So when this h3 gets clicked on, it calls the function update parent state with the value wow. And this function, update parent state, gets in wow, and it sets it on state to some value. So I think that's the thing that you're looking for. So in the child, we click that. And if we look at the component inspector, we can see in the parent component, some value is now set to wow. So we pass that function down, and the child can call it and set some state, pass it back up. Cool. Makes sense. Cool, Andrew. Glad to hear it. Team view. I agree. Hello, Angel. Welcome. It's true. Yeah. So it's harder to make a drop bot with YouTube, but it's very, very easy to make a drop bot with Twitch chat. And actually, let's put that on the list of things to do as well. I mean, is this just going to be a variety stream? No, I want to solve some code katas. We're about to do that. But if someone reminds me, when I'm done solving these 2 katas, I will build a drop bot. Show you how it works. It's actually pretty easy. And with TMI.js, you don't even need Node. You could build like a web browser page that does it. Hey, Alka. That's not a bot response. That's the real Alka. Cool. Yeah, no worries, motivation. It was a fun little experiment. Hello, Waves. Welcome to the stream. Are there circumstances where you don't want bind? I mean, the circumstances where you do want bind are if you're accessing this. If you're using this, then that function needs to have the correct this, so that's why you use bind. But if it's a function that doesn't use this, then yeah, you wouldn't need to bind it. For sure. I mean, you could. I feel like it'd be very simple to write an emitter and use it in React. I don't know. Make a video for managing a front-end application. Yeah, I could think about it. It's hard because I don't have a large code base to demonstrate it on. All of the stuff I'm working on is closed source. We could find some open source projects and maybe look at their source code. But yeah, thank you, Crypt Style. Hey, Shaggy, what's up? I agree, Majestic. I do not like it at all. Hooks are cool, and hello speed. Yeah, I like hooks a lot. All right, let's solve a kata. We're gonna do a numerical palindrome first. So let's get to it. Is that one of the new haha emotes, or is that like a different emote? Oh, it's not. No. I've been giving bits like crazy because I'm trying to get all the haha holiday emotes. Though I didn't realize, but these haha holiday emotes are gonna go away. Only 2 of them are gonna stick around after the holidays. Yeah, there's Shaggy's got some haha holidays ones. Anybody else got some haha holidays emotes on Twitch? They're really cool. Hopefully, so the thing is they go away, and if you have 2 of the most popular ones, then you get to keep those. But if you don't, then you lose all of them. But I don't know. Yeah, that emote never goes away. So true. All right, we're on to numerical palindrome. Oh, nice. Oh, what's this one? Haha point. Haha baby. Oh yeah, this one's great. The haha turtle dove. It's literally a turtle dove. Tanisk, I'm about to start a code kata, but if you open an issue on the GitHub repo, it's in the description of the YouTube chat. If you go to issues and open a new issue with the link to the kata, I can give it a look. So I'll link this, but there you go. And hello, Jorge, welcome. It's so easy to write bad code in React. Yeah, and I see a lot of it. I see a lot of bad React code. You can also use bind to do partial function application. This is very true. Hello, Mahidra. What is Docker? Why is it important? And when and how to use it? We'll save that question. Remind me to get back to that question because we're about to start writing some code. All right, we need to create a file locally called numerical palindrome 3.5. I have a feeling this is not going to be trivial. And Alan with the Patreon pledge. Thank you so much, Alan. Much appreciated. With that pledge, you get access to exclusive Discord channels. And yeah, that's about it, but welcome. Let's create a new file. All right, we need a function, palindrome. And then we have our tests, which we'll put here. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the function needs to return no palindromes found if they're not found. It needs to return an array of all the palindromes that are inside of the number, if possible. And if it's not a valid number, then it returns not valid. So that's cool. Let's actually start with these not valid ones. Those will be easy to get working first. In this kata, single-digit numbers and numbers which start or end with zeros are not considered valid numeric palindromes. That's good to know. If it's a single digit, and it ends with a 0 but doesn't start with a 0, it's not a valid palindrome. Okay. If num contains no valid palindromes, return no palindromes found, otherwise not valid. If the input is not an integer or less than 0, not valid. Okay, so I'm going to link this for anyone else if you want to try solving it while I try solving it. I think it's not going to be easy. we're gonna have to do some thinking to get it working. Let me catch up on the chat and then we'll write some code. Yes, look at all those emotes. Hello, Jorge, welcome. Can you start by solving 8-bit problems? I haven't heard of 8-bit. Oh, on Supertest. Cool. Hello, GetMaxed. Is there anything better in Node.js API testing than Supertest? Supertest is the way to go as far as I know. There might be others out there. Anyone in the chat, do you know of other like Express API testing frameworks? Yeah, I got Rickrolled. Hello, Kamalesh. Welcome. Oh, very good. Palindromes are amazing. Hello, Time Clock. And Alan M, thanks again for the Patreon pledge, who says, thank you for creating such good content. Thanks for hanging out with us, being part of the community. So snowy, yeah. No, Andrew. No worries, Mahidra. I will allow it. Remind me in like roughly an hour or so if you're still here, and I will try to answer that question. Though I do eventually want to do like a full stream on it, and I have talked about Docker before, but yeah, I don't. You're not bothering me. I realize that I'm very busy. There's so much going on, so the questions get lost. It's okay. And thanks for the follow, Agony FPS. Welcome. Ooh, Time Clock starts school in a month. It's gonna be fine. That's true. Okay, so how are we going to solve this? I think what I'll do first, just because it's easy enough, is I'll handle all of the cases where we just return not valid. So the first case is if it's not a number. So I'll say if type of num does not equal number, then we are going to return not valid. Easy enough. And I'm going to start up Kata, which is a nice little tool which runs my code inside the editor. So we can see I'm returning not valid if it's not a number. So even though this looks like a number, it's wrapped in quotes, so it's a string, and my function returns not valid. So that's good. The next thing we need to handle is if it's less than 0. We return not valid. And I'm curious if is it less than or equal to? If an input or integer is less than 0. Okay, I'm just gonna say less than 0. So we'll say if num is less than 0, return not valid. And I don't really have to do this, but what I'm gonna do is, because I'm using the same string over and over again, I'm just gonna create a nice little object with error messages inside of it. So I'm gonna say like error messages is an object, and we'll have our not found error, which is literally the string not valid. We'll have a not valid error. And what I like about that is I have the string not valid in my code once, and then everywhere else I can just say error messages dot not valid. And that way, if I don't have a typo in the string or anything like that. So that's great. That did not work because I capitalized the N. Needs to be a lowercase n. There we go. All right, and then now we need to actually handle looking for palindromes. So I'll try to write some pseudocode. I think also they mentioned that single-digit numbers, so single-digit numbers and numbers which start or end with zeros are not considered valid numeric palindromes. So I'm just going to say if the number is less than 9, it's we're going to return no palindromes found. Also, if it's less than 10, because 10 is not a palindrome. So I'm just going to say if num is less than 10, we're going to return error messages dot no, we'll say not found. And then in our little error message object, we're going to say error messages dot not found. I'm going to say not found is that. Cool. So that handles all of those cases. Good to go. Now we need to actually start looking for the palindromes. Now, I think what I want to do, because I basically need to look at every single digit in the palindrome, or sorry, in the number, and determine if it's a palindrome, like kind of like as we're moving. So, like if I come across 1, 5. Like, we're looking at each character at a time, each digit at a time. So if I look at, sorry, I'm not getting the this one. So if I look at 1 and then 5, and then 5, the fact that I just saw 5, 5 means that I found a palindrome. So I need some way to keep track of like where I am in the number and what the current palindromes are so far. Because once we reach the end, we realize that the whole thing was a palindrome, so we store that as well. If you look at this one, Oh, interesting. It looks like they need to be sorted. Let's see. The array should be sorted in ascending order and any duplicates should be removed. Okay, so that's good to know. We can handle that kind of at the end after we've found our palindromes. But if I were traversing this one digit at a time, I would come across 2, 2, and I would say, oh, that's a palindrome. So I would store it off and say, we have a palindrome already. And then I have 2, 2, 1, not a palindrome. 1, 1 is a palindrome, so I'd store it. 2, 1, 1, 2, once I get to that 2 is a palindrome, so I'd store it. We get to the end, and the whole thing is a palindrome. And then we would like remove duplicates because we would have found 2, 2 as well. Yeah, so time clock is saying do a stack. I'm thinking it also could just be like a recursive function where we kind of call it with all the potential permutations. Jorge says the Kata says not valid with lowercase v. Yep, that's a problem. Thank you. You mean the string itself. So yeah, I'll fix that. And there is no exclamation mark. So yeah, that would have failed on Code Wars if I left it like that. Thank you. Cool. And actually, I think I'm just going to write a little helper function that checks to see if the given thing is a palindrome. We'll say like is sub palindrome. And I think I'm going to be operating on strings just because it's going to be way easier for me to get each individual digit if I turn it into a string first. I could do some fancy maths to like get each digit, but I think I'm going to turn it into strings. So I'm going to create a function called is sub palindrome that gets a string, and we just want to say like string, like the classic check for palindrome. Split it, reverse it. Is it equal to itself? And if it is a valid some palindrome. So this is like the simplest check for is one little thing a palindrome, but the real challenge here is like finding the sub palindromes. So, oops. Let's just write some pseudocode. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I know where to start. So we need a place to store the palindromes. Most likely it's going to be an array, so we can push each one in as we find it. We then need to iterate over the digits of the palindrome. Hello, Ledjon. This is JavaScript. I'm running my code locally with node.js, and when I submit it here, it's going to run with node.js as well, but this is JavaScript. So iterate over the digits of the palindrome, and we kind of need a place to keep track of the current palindromes in progress. Because as we look at each individual digit, we'll need to update that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking how this could be recursive as well. Good morning, Ashwin. Because I'm thinking we could recursively call the function with the last character chopped off and with the first character chopped off, but you call it twice. And then with each of those, you call it twice with the last character chopped off and the first character chopped off in two different ways. Yeah. So I want to say do things. This is going to be hard. And then lastly, we need to return all palindromes. But we need to sorted and duplicates removed. So yeah. Now let's think, could I do this recursively? So if yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Because the first thing we'll do is check to see, is this number a palindrome? And also, let's say we have a default parameter called palindromes. Palindromes, and that's going to start off as an empty array. And we'll say if is sub palindrome num, and here we're going to toString it. So if the first number we pass in, so in this case it is, if that one is a sub palindrome, then we will push it into the array. Push the number in, just like that. We have this business here, and I think it's going to be the recursive call. And then we return all palindromes sorted and duplicates removed. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to return palindromes with dot. No, I'm going to do an. Here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to sort it. So I'll say palindromes.sort. And we do need a custom comparison function because we're sorting numbers. And we'll do a minus b. And that should sort it in ascending order, so from lowest to highest. And then now that we've had it sorted, we want to remove duplicates. And for that, I'm just going to use a set. So a nice little trick you can do with a set is turn a set into an array. So you can pass an array into a set. A set by default doesn't have duplicates, so the set is basically going to just remove the duplicates for us, and then we're going to turn it back into an array and return that. And if I've done everything correctly, actually let's do this. My is sub palindrome function isn't working. So let's say we take in a number and we store it as a string. And then we do this. Oh yeah, and I know why it's not working now that I look at it. So not only does it need to equal itself, well, after we reverse it, we need to join it back together. Cool. So at this point, these two functions have found themselves as a palindrome, right? They found that and they found that because that's really the only thing we're doing, and then we return. Now we need to check the subparts of the subparts of those numbers. And I really think it's easy as this. Like, watch this. If this works, wow. But what I want to say is palindromes. No. We're going to call palindrome with some number. And we're actually mutating the array. So we're going to pass in that palindromes array. And it's going to push into it. So eventually, when the call stack bubbles back up, the last thing is going to return that array with all of those palindromes in it. But here's what I want to do. So I want to call that function recursively with 22112 and 2112. So basically, chop off the first value and send it through. Chop off the last value and send it through. And we'll basically, I believe, look at all permutations of that number. So let's do this. We'll say num.toString .slice 1, and that should remove the first value of it, or the first character in it. And we want to do the same thing, but we want to remove the last character. So num.toString slice -1. And let me make sure that that works. So there's a way of calling slice where you can pass it in a negative value and it'll remove the last value in the string. So this is what I'm thinking. So if we have like, for instance, that particular value, and we say slice with -1, that's not what we want. What if we do substr? That's not what we want. Oh, I think I know it. So if we do 0, -1, that does it. So slice with 0, -1 removes the last value from it. And by golly, I think we've done it. And then the other thing is if I say slice with 1, that removes the first character in it. Cool. And yeah, we've done it. So what we'll do right here is we'll say if not palindromes.length, return error messages dot not found. So if there's nothing in the array, return not found. That handles that there. So this works. Why does it work? I don't know. Recursion's a crazy thing. But if you think about it, basically I'm finding every possible permutation of that number and passing it through this function. So we're basically finding every permutation. So we call the same function with 155. We call that same function with 551. We call that same function with 55. We call that same function with 5 and with 5. So we find every permutation. We call it with the whole thing. We call it with 21122. We call it again with 22112. We call it again with 2112. We call it again with 211. We call it again with 112. We call it again with 11. We call it again with 1 and 1. So this recursive call, because I'm just chopping off the first and the last and calling it each time, we're literally finding every possible permutation and checking to see, yeah, numbers. And it seems to work. So I'm glad that works. There's definitely a way to do this without recursion. But I like the recursive function because we basically get to reuse this logic of checking if it's a palindrome and checking the error logic. Because otherwise, we could basically find every permutation inside of a loop. But our code would get a little bit messier because we want to make sure that we're always doing the same error checking and we're always using that. So I'm going to stick with this. Can anyone think of other ways to do this? I know someone lift me instead of drop me. That's funny. Someone earlier mentioned we could use a stack. Any thoughts on any thoughts on that? This is a real video of you getting rickrolled. Okay. That code looks nice. So thank you, Eddie. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Doc. Thanks for mentioning it. This is not performant. There's a lot of hidden, nested, double iteration going on here. So it might actually be n-cubed. So, and then also the fact that I'm doing this every time. Yeah, this is not performant. Absolutely. Here, let me submit it just to see if it works for the test cases. But then it could possibly time out. Oh, I have to pass in my error messages as well. And so that's something to look out for on Code Wars, is sometimes they make sure that you have a performance solution, and this is not a performance solution. Yeah, so those passed. It took 1 second. Which is probably not that good because the test cases, the official ones, run like hundreds of cases. So we'll see. Let's catch up on the chat, and then we'll. Oh yeah, and that's a good call. Maybe we can get into that because I've talked about memoization. I think last time, memoization. But yeah, it's a good call. Hello, Shaggy. Excuse me. Speed is saying TypeScript is great for checking types too. Yeah, it is. I think it's a bit overkill for what I'm doing here. But in TypeScript, this would be known as like an enum, because it lets you like reuse string values and they actually have a type. But I do that when I'm coding in JavaScript. anyways, because it's a cleaner code, I would say. Oh, interesting. I don't know. That Rickroll is freaking brilliant. Yeah. So for those of you that weren't here earlier when it happened, I'll play the video because it was pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, and thanks for catching that, Jorge. I think we fixed it. Oh yeah, and Andrew Lane has open sourced his Dropbot. Is anyone else using it? And basically, it connects with TMI.js to the Coding Garden channel, and then it sets an interval. So where is the set interval for that interval? What is the interval? 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, it runs drop me. So that's really all it takes to build a Twitch bot, which is interesting. Hello, Merit-chan. Welcome. Yeah, time clock. If you have any ideas for how we would solve it with a stack, give me some pseudocode. Maybe we can try implementing it. Yeah. Good morning, Ashwin. Welcome. Make a command prompt that shows the current palindrome it's working on. We could do that. Let's console log it, so we can see how many times this thing runs. Well, actually, we can just log it right here. And then if we run this from the terminal, well, let's do it only on one. So, like on this one, which finds a bunch of different palindromes. So we're only going to call our function once, but because we have this logging here, every single thing we check to be a palindrome, we're going to see that logged in the console. So let's see it happen. What's this called? Oh, not that. Whoa. So it checks that, that, all of these. And one note that Doc mentioned earlier is we could use memoization. And the idea with memoization is because we've already checked 11 and 12, we can store that. And later on, if we call the function again, we just check to see if we've checked before. And if we have, we don't try doing it again. That also would remove duplicates. Most likely could remove duplicates here as well. So we see all these checks that happened. Recursion, yeah. Let's drink some water. That's great. Oh, I think you can modify an Alco emote. Can you do it when he's not streaming? Yeah, so on Alka's channel, if you watch enough, you can spend 900 reward points to modify an emote. Do that. There you go. Wait, do I need to refresh? I guess I need to refresh. I'm gonna lose all the chats. I'll leave it for now. Is this it for real? All right, let's watch me getting rickrolled. It's true, Alka. Technically, a black screen is streaming. May not be actual content. Yep. So Andrew told me he was streaming, and he got it set up so that he was actually playing the rickroll video, and I got rickrolled. Yeah, ice cold. What are you trying to do, Andrew? Oh, we're trying to embed an MP4. I think that's... I'm not going to click that. Yeah. Yeah, so it's absolutely not performant. Let's see what we can do to increase the performance. That'd be good to do. Hello, Ikandoja. It's good to see you again. I've been reading the book that you mentioned to start Learn JS, and I just want to say thank you because of it. Awesome. Which one did I recommend? I've recommended it like a few before. So there's JavaScript for Kids, which is probably like the one I would say if you're just getting started. Eloquent JavaScript and You Don't Know JS, which are both they're not the greatest for beginners, but you can read them as a beginner. I am of Mexican descent. Yeah, not gonna work. Good try. Oh, interesting. That would be cool. That might be cool to implement. Maneker's algorithm, which can enumerate all subpalindromes in linear time. Very cool. And you know what? This is actually a very common interview question that I've seen before. They usually don't ask it on numbers. Like they'll ask it for strings, but at the end of the day, we're just turning them into strings to check if they're a palindrome anyways. So knowing how to solve this in a more performant way is definitely good for interviews. Hmm. Oh, I missed the hello. Who was that? Salmia from India. Welcome. And hello, Bertrand. It's time to answer the question, the Docker one. We'll get to it. Only 16 more chat messages, and then we'll talk about it. Cool. Merchan says, I've been up all night trying to get A star to work in C, which has been a pain since C doesn't have dynamic arrays. Someone throw some high-level language on me. I've got all the JavaScript you need, Merchan. And hello, Pranjal. Is that face for the recursive solution? Mahidra says, I'm too good in inefficient algorithms. Yeah. Unpopular opinion. I like the Rickroll song and listen to the end when someone Rickrolls me. That's great. Motivation says, the daily water recommendation is 3 liters. What do you think about carrying around a 3-liter bottle of water around instead of filling it up multiple times? So, this is 1 liter. I probably don't drink 3 liters of water a day. I know it's bad, but I probably don't. I drink like one of these, maybe 1.5, because I also drink like sparkling water. But yeah. I've heard of 3 liters for like survival, like if you're out in the elements and like under the sun and stuff like that. But I probably should drink more water in general. And I probably wouldn't carry around 3 liters because you would basically need a camelback. And I do refill this like at least once a day. Yeah. How to schedule a notification in React? Like one notification pops up and waits for 4 seconds there. That's kind of like a toast. We can talk about that. I drink 3 liters of Mountain Dew a day. Does that count? Drink your water. That does not count, Majestic Eye. I've known people that literally will drink an entire 2 liter of soda in a day, which is crazy. I'm gonna drink my water. We'll take a pause to drink water. And actually, Coding Garden is brought to you by viewers like you. All these wonderful people. Here they come. Here they come. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Maybe. It should happen at some point. Let me see. Well, so the API works. It's right there. Why is it not working in the overlay? There it is. Coding Garden is brought to you by viewers like you. And here they all are. Wonderful, wonderful people. In order of who's been supporting me the longest. And while we look at all these wonderful names, I thank each and every one of you, and I will drink my water as well. Yeah, things stop working all the time. All the time. It's just the world that we live in. Oh, nice emote drop, Alka. Yeah, and shout outs to my latest patron, Cleo, who is the community manager for Coding Train, and for Alan, who just pledged today on the stream. Much appreciated. Let's answer that Docker question. Here we go. Fertilizer, yeah. What is Docker and why is it important? When and how to use it? Let's look at the Docker website. Enterprise container platform. Debug your app, not your environment. Securely build, share, and run any application anywhere. So this is one of the main selling points of Docker. So I guess first I'll talk about why it is useful and why people use it. And then we can talk about like what it is and what's happening. So basically what Docker allows you to do is it allows you to take a development environment. And when I say development environment, I mean a server with potentially many different services and dependencies running and that need to be installed and that need to be a specific version for your application to work. You take all of those things and you put it into what's known as a container. And that container is completely and totally reproducible. You can take that container and you can run it on your laptop for when you're doing local development. You can take that container, you can run it in the cloud for when your application is deployed in production. You can run that same container on staging, on user acceptance. So it basically allows you to create an environment that is completely and totally reproducible and reusable. And that is opposed to basically managing a server altogether. So before something like Docker existed, typically you would have to and there have been other things. There's like Vagrant, which works with virtual machines. It works in a similar way, but Docker is for containers. But let's say nothing like that existed. Basically, you would have to install an operating system like Linux. You'd have to install all of its updates. You'd have to install any like system level dependencies that might need to exist. You would then need to get your code repository onto that server. You would then need some sort of service that's monitoring that the application that you wrote to make sure that it never crashes. You would also need to make sure that all of the dependencies for that application, so if it's like a node.js application, you need to make sure that you run npm install. You need to make sure that those are kept up to date. It's basically a lot of work. And so what Docker allows you to do is define an environment which has all of that basically defined in a single configuration file or a couple configuration files. And once you have that, you can then create an image. That image can be hosted in the cloud, and then you can deploy that image to servers. You can use those Docker configuration files to run those Docker containers locally. It basically gives you a nice streamlined way of managing environments and deployments. So that's why it's useful. In terms of what it is, it's containerization. And not this intermodal freight transport. Yeah, and so this is where that question comes into play, Ashwin. How is Docker different from a virtual machine? And describing how Docker works under the hood will bring some light to that. So operating system level virtualization is not what Docker is. Let's see if Docker is mentioned in here and where it would be. It's interesting that they have it listed in the same Wikipedia article, because technically containers are not the same thing as a virtual machine. Yeah, the term container, while most popularly referring to OS-level virtualization systems, is sometimes ambiguously used to refer to fuller virtual machine environments operating in varying degrees of concert with the hostess. Yeah, so let's first look at what a virtual machine is, and then we can differentiate them. So a virtual machine is an emulation of a computer system. Let me hide my screen for a second. I might have VirtualBox installed. I can show you so many technical words. Yeah, any word that I mentioned that you don't understand, please say it, and I can try to describe what it is. So right now I have this program called VirtualBox running on my computer. VirtualBox is, I believe, open source software. They at least have a community edition. But this is a piece of software that you can run on your computer if you have the right, what is it? Your CPU needs to support virtualization. But if your CPU supports virtualization, you can run virtual machines. And you can see right here, I have an Ubuntu machine. I have a Windows XP machine. This is what I used a while back when I did the Throwback Thursday. But if we go into settings, we can see that this virtual machine has a motherboard with a RAM. It has a hard disk. It has an optical drive. It has a virtual video memory and virtual display. It has virtual hard drives, a virtual sound card, a virtual network adapter, virtual ports so you can plug USBs into it. Basically, this is emulating an entire computer inside of my computer. So if I start this up, it literally emulates a machine that has video memory and has RAM. And we can actually see, here it is. Here is the Windows XP virtual machine. Apparently my network cable is unplugged. Oh, here we go. If I do this. If I do that. There we go. So I'm now running inside of Windows XP. I can go to my computer, like view system information. Like this thing thinks it's running on a computer with 2.9 gigahertz CPU and 2 gigs of RAM. So operating system virtualization is literally emulating my system, emulating hardware for this thing to use and to think that it has. Let's close it. There we go. So that was Windows XP running, and it had its own RAM, it had its own CPU. Similarly, this Ubuntu system, let's look at its specs. It has 2 gigs of memory, 128 megabytes of video RAM. It has an Ubuntu hard drive that has a virtual size of 10 gigabytes. So the thing with virtualization is everything is emulated. It thinks it's a full-fledged machine. So it's a substitute for a real machine. And this technology is still used. Like a lot of server farms where like your applications get deployed to, they basically have really, really beefy machines. So they'll have servers that have hundreds of gigabytes of memory and dozens of cores, like a really, really, really powerful machine. And then they'll just run like 10, 20, 30 virtual machines all on that machine. And those are known as VPSs, or virtual private servers, and you can basically rent them out, and it's a full-fledged operating system. So that's that. So that's a virtual machine, which is opposed to OS-level virtualization, and that is what Docker is. And basically, these containers, these Docker containers, share system resources, and they're not running in an emulated environment. They're all running on the same hardware. They just typically will share something like the Linux kernel. So they all use the same kernel. They all use the same underlying system, but it's just a little subsection where it actually is totally sectioned off from everything else. Like the container doesn't actually know that it's running next to a bunch of other containers, if you could say that. Like basically you have all these containers. They all have full access to the hardware of the computer. With Docker, you can limit that. Like you can limit the amount of memory that they have access to and stuff like that. But it's different from virtualization because it's not emulation. They're actually sharing system resources. Let's see if we can find an image of that. Yeah, containers versus VMs. So in a virtual machine, like I just talked about, Docker on a VPS, that's totally possible. But what I just talked about, it's like you have this host operating system and then you have a hypervisor. So a hypervisor is, in my case, like VirtualBox. So VirtualBox is the, what do you call it? The hypervisor, sorry. And then that has multiple guest operating systems. They each have their own, if these are all Linux machines, they all have their own Linux kernel. They all have emulated RAM, emulated access to CPU. They're all completely and totally separate. But then if you look at containers, you have the Docker engine, and then you have all of the apps. So the containers are isolated but share the operating system and the appropriate binaries and libraries. Joel is saying, would it be like running multiple terminal windows? Not quite, because if you just open another terminal window on Windows, you still have the same user accounts and different things like that. I don't know if they have Windows level containers yet. They might. But if that were the case, each individual container would essentially have their own set of users and their own set of permissions, and they really wouldn't know that the others existed. It's sharing lower level things. Yeah. Cool. Probably talked about this a bit too much, but hopefully that sheds some light, Mahidra. That's what it is. Why it's important is, I mean, it's a really useful tool for managing deployment environments. See you later, Merritt Sean. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and Cananello is saying Google Cloud Platform virtual machines works for me. They're very affordable. Yeah, and you can absolutely like use virtual machines. Like one thing that I will do and that I've done is I will get a virtual private server, but it that has a lot of resources allocated to it, and then run Docker on that virtual private server and have multiple containers running on that. So like it goes so many levels down. But it makes it like really easy to deploy. So one thing is you can have like in your repo, you can have a Docker file which defines this environment. It says, I want to be running Ubuntu Linux. It should have Node.js 12 installed. And basically, you define all of this. You say, my application files are in this directory. And you define that file, and then you can start it up, and now you have a little container running. I won't get to how to use it, because I'll potentially do a future tutorial on that. But if you have any other questions, let me know, Mahidra. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you, Speed. Is communication between Docker containers done by Kubernetes? Yeah, and so Kubernetes is one tool to do that. So basically, you can have multiple containers. And one thing that I was working on at work today is I have a Docker Compose file. So a Docker Compose file allows you to create multiple Docker containers or services that basically talk to each other. So I have a Docker Compose file that defines a WordPress Docker container, a phpMyAdmin Docker container, a MySQL Docker container, and in that compose file, each of them has a service name, and I can say that the WordPress container depends on the MySQL database container, and phpMyAdmin depends on the MySQL database container. And Docker allows all of them to communicate in like an internal network, and it creates virtual networks where they have their own private IP addresses. But what makes that really useful is I can do like WordPress development locally, do Docker Compose up. I have the database running. I have phpMyAdmin. I basically have a copy of what would be happening in production on my local machine. And similarly, when I deploy, I can take that same compose file, put it on a server somewhere, spin it up, and the system is really ready to go with minimal configuration. And Kubernetes is doing that at scale. So I just mentioned a setup where I have like 3 containers, which isn't huge. But you can go beyond that, because with deployments like this, your services could potentially automatically spin up, and basically you can scale horizontally. So you could configure Kubernetes to spin up a new instance of the WordPress container if my first container starts getting too much traffic. And then I'm not totally familiar with how it's all configured, but basically you might need your own load balancer. Maybe Kubernetes does the load balancing. I don't know, but you would need some service that basically routes the requests to those multiple containers, but Kubernetes would be in charge of spinning up a new one if needed. There's also Docker Swarm, which Docker comes with out of the box, but Kubernetes is from Google, and it's kind of like Docker at scale. Hello, W3 Develops. It's the game you see on the screen. So if you type !drop and then me, like you just see Andrew doing, it'll drop your avatar. And if you land right here, it'll grow a nice little seedling, and you'll get your name on the leaderboard. Thanks for the follow, Carhall. Oh yeah, and in terms of like DevOps and Docker resources, there's a few Twitch channels you should check out. Mastermindio, did I spell that right? Yep. Check out Mastermind.io. He actually does live streams talking about DevOps in Docker containers. So you can check him out. And then there's also little Bobby Tables, Robert Tables. He's done actually a lot of streams just teaching people about like what is Docker from scratch, because there's a lot more to it. Like I gave you the high level, what is it not, why is it useful, but there's more to it, in that you can start talking about images and how those work and how images are cached and containers can share images and like all kinds of stuff like that. So check out those channels for sure. And hello, Yuvraj. I was just answering a question from a user who was asking, what is Docker? So I just explained that, but right now, I'm going to get back to writing some code. Yeah, and I'll try to get back to your question later, Pranjal. Robert Tables. It's a play on little Bobby Tables. I'll let you read that while I take a drink of water. Like bubbly water, water with carbonation in it is sparkling water. I'm not a kung fu master. This is actually one of the easiest hair and beard styles to maintain. Like it may not look that way, but to me, in all my years of living on Earth, I've tried different hairstyles, and some of them take more work than others. This is the easiest, so I've stuck with it for like several years now. Cool. Hello, Nar. Welcome. Now I'm tempted to be on that list. What, of Rickrolls? Yep. So, Nar, if you check out codewars.com, and I'll talk about it real quick, they have all kinds of challenges of varying skill levels. So typically, if you're just starting out, you can click 8Q. So 8Q are the easiest, and as the number gets smaller, they gradually get harder. And so you can sort by level, and then you can choose a language. So I use JavaScript, and that's what I solved them in. But if you're learning other languages, like any of these listed here, you could choose those and solve the problems in those languages as well. And typically, I like to sort by most completed, because these are user-submitted challenges, and some of them aren't the best quality. So if you go by like newest, then you might find some that don't have the best descriptions or aren't the best problems to solve. But yeah, there are all kinds of coding problems of different levels. Yeah, and Cananello has done it in Java. So many technical words. Hola, Shiny Coffin, bienvenidos. Windows XP. Yeah, if you check out coding.garden/videos, and then click on Throwback Thursday, I used a Windows XP virtual machine and Dreamweaver 5 to recreate Tom's MySpace page. So that's the thing. Maybe Merit-chan, but computers that I've tried it on just won't even work at all. So it depends. But does it run solitaire? Yeah, it does. It also runs that pinball game. Is Docker the way to do the project with the same environment in any operating system like Windows, Mac, Linux? As far as I know, it's mainly just Linux containers. Maybe they've done something for Windows. I don't imagine you could do it with Mac. It's mainly Linux, which is what the majority of the servers running the internet are running on. See you later, Speed. Thanks for tuning in. Dreams inside other dreams, yeah. And thanks for the follow, Carhal. Welcome. Yeah. VF Davis says, that's one of my favorite XKCD comments. I remember the day it came out. It was a riot among my friends at school. Yeah. It's a classic for sure. Hello, Brandon. Welcome. Just drink water. Majestic Eye says, I vote that people who rickrolled you get put at the bottom of your scrolling thank you list. But did they really did they really contribute anything? I mean, it's a great technical feat. I mean, not really. I am human. I'm going to click links. Though, some people have devised very clever ways of rickrolling me. That's true, Majestic Eye. I'll think about it. Maybe we'll have a rickroll.coding.garden. And you'll get your name on the on the leaderboard or something like that. Let's discuss it on Discord, but I think I can do something like that. Hello, Influke, who says, how do I begin learning code? What's a good language to start with? And how can I turn it into a job when I've got good enough at it? You're asking the real questions here. In terms of getting, learning code, so I do mostly JavaScript, and I do full stack web development. So this particular stream that you're watching, I'm solving what are known as coding problems using JavaScript. But you can use many other programming languages to solve these same problems, because most of these languages are known as general purpose programming languages, and JavaScript is one of them. That said, JavaScript is one of the most prevalent programming languages because it runs the web. So every website you visit, it most likely has JavaScript code on it. So from my point of view, I suggest JavaScript because it's so accessible. That said, there are other languages. A lot of people like to suggest Python because it's very English-like when you're looking at the code. And then there are other languages that are used a lot in industry. So a lot of larger enterprise companies will use things like Java or C#. But JavaScript is pretty much used everywhere. So that's what I would suggest. And mainly because there are a lot of jobs in web development. And now JavaScript is not really only a web development language, because you can, in terms of front-end web development, the things you see in the browser here, this is known as front-end. But pretty much behind any one of these websites is a back-end server. And those back-end servers used to just be written in Java or PHP or C#. But now they can be written within the past 9 years. It's been a while, but it slowly got more and more popular. JavaScript and node.js in particular can be used to build back-end applications as well. And that's what I do professionally when I'm not streaming. It's just on 8 billion devices. No one uses Java. A lot of banks use Java. So they're I see Java and C# as very enterprisey languages. If you want to get a job at a large company, you probably should learn Java or C# or something like that. That said, you could learn JavaScript and get a job at a large company. I don't know. It's not that easy. You kind of need to figure out what you want to do a little bit of research. That said, if you do want to learn JavaScript, my recommendation is to start with the book JavaScript for Kids. Yeah, it's from No Starch Press. It says it's for kids, but it's a really great introduction to just programming in general. So check it out. There's that. Yep. And ActionScript is actually based on ECMAScript, which is the underlying standard for JavaScript. But yeah, if you use the browser, I don't know, 5 years ago, was Flash that prevalent? For interactive websites, it used to only be Flash, but now there's things like HTML5 and Canvas and all these things that make JavaScript. TypeScript is coming. It's not. TypeScript will never be in the browser. Mark my words. TypeScript will never be in the browser. It's always going to be JavaScript. You're always going to need some sort of build tool. How to try your hairstyle without getting bullied and fun from other people's. Just don't care. I don't care. All the Flash animations back in the 90s, for sure. Okay, so check out that book. There's also Free Code Camp. So this is a completely free online curriculum for learning full stack web development. So they not only teach you responsive web design and like how to program with JavaScript, you also learn about APIs and building backend services and being a full stack developer. So when we talk about being a full stack developer, that means you're not just building the front end, you're also building the back end and managing the databases and all of that good stuff. So check that out. In terms of some other books, there's Eloquent JavaScript, which is a great resource. It's a little dense and a little terse. So if you're completely and totally new to JavaScript, it's probably not the best place to start, but it is a good resource. And then there's also You Don't Know JS. So I know I'm throwing a lot of resources at you, but I would just say, check them all out. Pick the one that makes the most sense to you. You don't have to use all of them. Just pick one, because they really are for they really are for different audiences. Trevor Blades with the raid. What's up, Trevor? Welcome. You have entered the coding garden. This is my Code Kata stream. Right now I'm just answering questions. Someone had asked about how do I begin learning code, so just throwing some resources out there. What's up? What were you working on? Were you doing like Gatsby stuff? Cool. But welcome, everyone. If you type !drop in the chat, you'll get a nice little thing that will fall, and if you land right here, you might make it to the leaderboard. Is there a TypeScript compiler written in JavaScript? I'm pretty sure the TypeScript compiler is written in JavaScript. Yeah. Ooh, working with the Stripe API. Very cool. Euphrasia, no worries. And this stream is going to be on YouTube afterwards. So this very URL, well, not there, up here, you can watch it again later if you want to. Web development right now is like a chaotic battlefield. How to remember JS with vanilla and so many frameworks. Yeah, it's hard. I do recommend if you're just getting started, you want to start with just JavaScript because there's a lot of other stuff out there, right? There's React and Vue and all these things. But if you're just getting started, stick with regular JavaScript. And just real quick, I do have a video recommendation. This stream I did a while back on Coding Train, in about an hour and a half, I build a full stack application from scratch and talk about all the parts and the pieces and how they all fit together. And so that would give you a good idea of how web development, full stack development works and what you might, how things work, basically, how the web works. Let's catch up on the chat. There's more stuffs. Yeah, I'm also streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/codinggarden. How is your teaching style so cool? I don't know. I try to be as genuine as possible. Like, I'm not. See you later, Trevor. Thanks for the raid. Have a good dinner. I don't try to be anything that I'm not. What you see right here is what I am, except for like below the table because you can't see that. But I try to just share what I know. And also, in terms of teaching, I try to keep a beginner's mind. So when I'm talking about a particular thing, I'm constantly reminding myself, like, what would someone who knows absolutely nothing about this kind of thing, what would they not know? What words might they not know? And what are assumptions that I might have made that I can like just describe and overcome? So that's what I try to do. Hello, Amadou. Welcome. Don't know what the original purpose, but JavaScript is mostly used as a web development language. The original purpose for JavaScript was to be a scripting language in the browser. That was the original purpose. But now it's everywhere. It's on backend servers. It's on embedded devices. It's everywhere. We're catching up. We're 37 messages behind, but we're catching up. Good morning, Ben. Welcome. YOLO! Travis.yaml is a description for a continuous integration and continuous deployment service. So if you look at Travis CI, test and deploy your code with confidence. So Docker containers, which we were talking about earlier, actually come into play with Travis CI because you can set things up. So you create a Travis.yaml in your GitHub repo, and you can set it up so that anytime a pull request is merged into a branch, Travis CI will automatically spin up. It can run your tests, it can run your linter, and if everything passes, it could potentially like deploy a Docker container to the cloud. So that's a thing. VF David says, "You don't know JavaScript reminds me of my dad. When I was interested in cricket, he gave me a book. Now you can play cricket." Yeah. And the author Kyle Simpson actually renamed it. So the latest version is called "You Don't Know JavaScript Yet," because after reading his book, you will. But yeah. YOLO. Insane Killer says, "Would solo learn be recommended? I've been trying it and I feel like it's teaching me a bit, but I'm sure if it's effective as it could be, if that makes sense." Yeah, the main thing about learning with others or like being in a classroom or something like that is it's more similar to what you would be doing in the real world, and you can bounce ideas off of people. You don't have to just be stuck with yourself all the time. I mean, that said, it's a good way to get started to make sure that you actually like coding and it's something that you want to do. And eventually, maybe you can enroll like in a night class or find one of these coding boot camps or something like that. But depending on where you are in the world, you might check out tech meetups. So, I mean, I live in Denver, Colorado, and I run the Vue.js meetup. You can see there are 849 members. I mean, we usually have about 20 people show up, but there are so many other tech meetups. You can see the ones that I'm following. Denver Boulder Cybersecurity. Let's just look up meetups. So I'm going to go 10 miles within Denver. We'll filter by tech, all upcoming events. So we have like a blockchain meetup. There's a hackerspace. There's Swift developers. There's Agile, cybersecurity, Google developer group. So all of these are just meetups where you can go and actually talk to people and bounce ideas off people. So I don't know where you are in the world, but if you do have something like Meetup, that's also a good way of, even though you're solo learning, finding other people and like just talking about what you're learning. Yeah. iPhone Pancakes, hello, says, +1 for tech meetups. I literally have gotten jobs from the friends I've made there. Yeah. I used to teach at a code school, and we basically would tell our students this all the time. Like, go to tech meetups. Don't go there looking for a job, but just go there to learn, meet people, make friends, and eventually those connections will result and potentially could result in getting a job. But yeah, cool. Also, if you haven't seen Free Code Camp, Free Code Camp actually has IRL meetups every now and then. So depending on where you are in the world, of course, if you're near one of the places where they have meetups, you can be working on the online curriculum and then go to one of these meetups to get help. So you can check that out. Dope Boy Prax says, should we be more machine learning focused or more design focused? I don't know quite what this question means. I definitely think there's too much emphasis on solving things with machine learning these days. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, there's a ton of machine learning hype. The majority of machine learning is just like if-else statements. But yeah. Hello, Aran. Welcome. Yeah, so CI/CD is continuous integration, continuous deployment, and Travis CI is one way that you can do it. And they do have a free tier, so you can set it up with a GitHub repo. What criteria do you use when making career decisions? Mainly, I want to be comfortable. I want to be happy. I don't want to hate my job. I want to have freedom. I think that's it. I don't know. Drink water. You should recommend Front End Masters. I believe Kyle teaches there. Yeah, so it's a good resource, and I've watched a few of his courses because he has like deep dives into JavaScript. So that's where I learned a lot about just like how JavaScript works. In one of Kyle Simpson's courses. I don't really know if these are for beginners though. They're really good as like a current developer that wants to up their skills. So deep JavaScript foundations. It's called Foundations, but this course is not for beginners. This course is for people that already know JavaScript and want to learn more about how it works good under the hood. Yeah. Ever consider working in Silicon Valley? Nope. It's too expensive. There's too much competition, and other various reasons. So I've visited there. I've gone to conferences there, but I would never. I don't want to live there. A good learning resource for CI/CD. I don't really know. No learning resource is better. Thanks, Mahidra. The Twitch resources I linked earlier might be a good place to start. I linked them on YouTube. Mastermind.io and Robert Tables. They do streams regularly just teaching about DevOps type stuff. I've mainly just learned from the documentation. Like, if you go to the Docker website, they have a ton of documentation. It's not the easiest to follow, and it's not always, like, potentially up to date, but they do have a ton of documentation, and you could potentially learn it by going through their Getting Started guide. So, yeah. Cool. Yes. Best CSS learning resources. I don't really have a recommendation for that. Yeah, you can check out like other YouTube channels, stuff like that. I've mainly just learned by doing. And thanks for the follow, Insane Killer. Welcome to the Coding Garden. CSS, yeah. I mean, this will pretty much always come up if you're searching for like how to use Flexbox or how to use CSS Grid. And there's tons of articles posted here, so yeah, there really is no. I mean, there's probably a better resource, but this is a great resource. I agree. Thanks for the YouTube sub, Lynn. I think California has an 11% state tax. That's a no-go for me. Yeah, that's another thing. So I worked in New York City for 3 months last year, and I'm pretty sure they have like really high state level taxes. And they like tax your income that you made while living in other states, even if you weren't a resident. I don't know. I don't know if Colorado's that great, but it's better than those places, I think. Nick says the best part about coding is that it's a human potential multiplier. It's really true. Like the fact that we have loops, just the general idea of loops. We can literally write some code that just runs over and over and over again, so we don't have to do that manually. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. I think I'm going to try to do one on Sunday. And hello, Josh. Yuvraj is saying, is it possible to learn programming without applying to any courses? Absolutely. There are so many online resources where you can just learn pretty much everything. But if you were listening earlier, I think it was Insane Killer asked about solo learning. It absolutely helps to be surrounded by other people that are learning as well. But it is totally possible to learn programming, learn web development, and get a job without ever actually going to college for it or going to a class for it. Nin says, how do you feel about those videos, One Day in a Developer Life, where people code literally 1 hour and keep eating snacks all day? The real world moves really slow. So like if you're working a real software job, you're a lot of times you're waiting on things. You're waiting for access to things, you're waiting on business requirements. You're waiting on other developers to finish their work so that you can get started. It's not always this way, but there is a lot of waiting around. And it's not just like 24/7 coding. There are some jobs that are like that, like 24/7 coding. Well, not 24, like 8 hours a day coding. But a lot of them are meetings and different things like that. I don't know. I mean, that said, I coded like 8 hours today. So, I mean, a lot of it was more of configuration, wrestling with WordPress. Like, I'm on a project where I've never done WordPress before, and I'm having to actually learn it and learn PHP, which is weird, and I don't like it, but I kind of have to. So, yeah. California doesn't tax you if you work outside. That's good. Josh is asking, no, so this is mainly iStat menus. I think they're all from iStat menus. This thing. You can configure which ones are showing up, but that's mainly what I use. Yeah, the problem with using APIs is that the library and documentation changes, so a lot of the time if you're watching an old video, they go out of date. It's very true. Which is just why that's one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're learning online is make sure that the tutorial that you're using was published within the last few months. Or that if you're using a specific library or a framework, make sure that it hasn't been updated recently, or if it has, you're using the latest documentation. That's a real thing. There you go. Nick has 0 formal education and has a job as a full stack developer. That's good. Yeah, go for it. Whoa. That is a lot. All right. We've been talking a lot, but it's been fun. You all are great people. It's fun to chat. But we're going to... I guess we were going to clean up the code. So one thing that Doc mentioned earlier... So before all of this chatter, I was writing this function to test... To determine all of the sub-palindromes within a given number. So given this number, can you determine all of the palindromes that exist within it? And we did. But we did it using recursion, and there's a lot of extra work going on here. And Doc mentioned earlier, this might be big O of n to the third power. So if we run this, we can see that it just happens over and over and over again. See you later, Ram. Thanks for tuning in. But we can speed it up by memoizing the function. It's like memoizing. One thing we could do is we could turn this is subpalindrome into a memoized function. So we could turn it into a function that keeps track of all of the previous checks so that it doesn't have to do this every single time. And if it's seen a palindrome before, it'll just instantly return true. Insane Killer says, I'm sorry to have a dumb question, but I happen to live in California. I'm pretty new to this, and I have no idea what tax is being talked about. Thank you for answering my precious questions. It really gave me the support I needed. Yeah, you're very welcome. It's mainly just income tax. I'm really... Super chat from Yurav. Yuvraj, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you. But it's about, I guess, income tax, right? I'm not the best with finances and stuff like that. But basically, it's and maybe you can ask, who was it, a Majestic Guy about it, who mentioned they have the 11% tax. You're just getting taxed more by the state on your income. So it might make sense to move to another state and like work remotely or something like that. But yeah, that's the thing. No worries, Yuvraj. Anything, I mean, even if you didn't donate, it's appreciated, but anything is appreciated. Okay, let's memoize this function. We're going to create a function called create memoized is sub palindrome. And this function needs basically a cache. It needs a place to store all of the previous results. And I'm just going to call it the cache. Sick function name, thank you. I'm just going to call it the cache. And this is just going to be an object where, so this function is super simple because you pass in a number and you get back some result. And this is technically a pure function because any number we pass into here, we're going to get the same result no matter what. This function isn't accessing any global variables. It's reproducible. So functions that are pure, that is, they take an input and give you an output, and they always give you the same output given the same input, those are the kind of functions that can be memoized. So yeah, we'll have the cache there. And we'll do this. And this create memoized is some palindrome is going to return a new function. So we'll say return. We're going to return a function that takes in a number and then does this business, the same stuff as before. And so now here on the outside, we'll say is palindrome is equal to create memoized is subpalindrome. So now we're creating a memoized that. We're creating a memoized version of is subpalindrome. And if we run it, we're not making use of this cache. So if we run the code, we can see that it's checking over and over and over again. But what we can do is anytime we check a number, we can do this. We'll say if the cache has that number, then we're just going to return the cache at that number. So no need to do the extra work. Otherwise, we do the work, and before we return, we store it in the cache. We store the result in the cache. So let's say result equals that. We're still going to return the result, but before we return it, we're going to say cache at that result. Sorry, at that number equals that result. There we go. And now if we run it, we see a lot less logs. Though we actually don't. So what's going on there? Let's figure this out. So if the cache has that number... Oh, I see, because it's doing true or false. So cache at that number is actually false because it's not a palindrome, and then it's returning. So really what we want to say is if number in cache. So we want to check to see if number is a property on this object, because otherwise we were getting the value stored there, and that was actually false. So now we can see that we're only ever logging a number once. So we're only checking if it's a palindrome one time. Any other time we return the computed or the previously computed result, which is pretty cool. It reduces the number of times that this function right here has to get called. So that's cool. And this is a memoized function. It's really that easy. You store the previous results, and then later on, if you call the function with the same input, you return that previous output that you generated before, but now you don't have to do the work. And I guess, Doc, if you're still watching, is this what you had in mind? Is there anything else we could do to like store results? Yeah. Let's catch up on the chat. Yeah. When am I doing another Q&A? Probably, hopefully this weekend. I mean, you're welcome to ask questions at any time. And there is qa.coding.garden, and these questions stay there. But I will answer them at a later time. And see you later, Jorge. Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Did Jorge ask a question? Yeah. Oh. I'll try to take a look at this after the stream, Jorge. Because I haven't looked at that repo in a while and I need to, so I'll try to take a look. Yeah, definitely. And thanks for the follow, PC Man. Thanks again for the super chat, Euphrash. PC man saying, I'm a mechanical engineer trying to learn to program. I've taken a course in C and have dipped my feet in Python, but only have grasped the basics. Any tips? I don't know. The thing about mechanical engineering is it's also very logical, just like programming. So your training as a mechanical engineer are definitely going to come in handy when you're attempting to write programs. I will say that on this stream, I write mainly JavaScript. A lot of the people that hang out here write mainly JavaScript, so we may not have the best advice on C or Python. One suggestion is to just start solving coding problems with it. So that's what this Code Katas thing is. If you go to codewars.com, not that. They have many different problems of varying complexity. So they're all the way from 8Q, which is the easiest, up to 1Q. And you can choose a ton of different languages to try and solve them with. And the idea there is just to get better, not only get better at solving problems, but to learn about the different features of that language that you're trying to learn. Because not every programming language works or like has the same built-in utilities. And if you're working in a particular language, it's good to learn all the idiosyncrasies and what are the things that people normally do when using that language. And this site definitely helps with that. You can filter by fundamentals. You can filter by language features. Where is it? Yeah, basic language features. And in particular, JavaScript, like this is going to teach you about objects. It's going to teach you about some of the built-in array methods and different things like that. Whereas you wouldn't necessarily know about those things unless you came across them somehow in your work. So I guess that's a bit of a recommendation. Drop won't see my secret messages. That's true. I feel like if I look at the chat. Oh my goodness. Does that count as a rickroll? I don't know. It's a good try though, Shaggy. Jake is saying, please explain. I go to a site and when I click on a course, it's redirecting me to a login page. On their script, there's a function called redirect to sign in, and in that function before window.location, and in that function before from console, I made that function undefined, and then on the HTML content, I set hidden content to visible, and now I have access to all the material. So how they stop this behavior, and when I build a site like this, how do I stop this? Yep. So basically, they don't have any back-end protections in place. They basically just wrote front-end code that restricts a user from getting to a particular page, and that's not good security, because any old Joe, sorry if there's any Joes watching, but any old person can open up the dev tools, mess around with the elements, set breakpoints, and I'll give it a try, Pranchal. The only issue is it's very specific. I could potentially try to use the React app that I generated earlier, but I'll give it a try. But yeah, anybody can open up the dev tools, edit things, remove elements. So front-end security is not security. The way to fix it is, like, if you're getting access to material, that material should, whether it's videos or documents or articles, all of that. Boomer, what? All of that should be protected on an API. So an API, you can lock things down. Hello, Dirkroll. You can lock things down based on a particular user's cookies or access tokens, and say you're not allowed to get access to this material unless you are actually logged in. So if they have all of the content there, really the only way to protect it is you only serve that content from the back end. Excuse me. If they are logged in, that's really the only way to do it. Front-end security is not security. Do you have a nice way to handle loading spinners on requests? So I don't have to do this dot is loading true, then once it's finished, this dot is loading false. You're talking about like Vue.js? You could, with the composition API, you could create like a little wrapper composition function that does a fetch and has its own internal state of loading, but then you use that in your component. I don't know, let me know, Ben, are you using Vue or what? If you were to recommend the best React 2019 to 2020 course, what would it be? I don't know. Like, I haven't taken any React courses, so I can't really recommend any. Yeah, I don't know. Memoization is great. I have been live for 2 hours and 13 minutes. How to prevent the space complexity for this cache. That's one of the potential drawbacks of using memoization is you now need more memory to store the previous results. You could potentially have like a timeout on the cache, and if a result isn't used after a certain amount of time, you can remove it from the cache. But it's a trade-off. Basically, you're trading memory space for like CPU cycles. Check it out. Yeah, like I said, I can't recommend any, but yeah. I feel like Python keeps your career options open. Sure, yeah. I mean, the thing is, web development is really, I mean, it might go away as we know it. Like we might change the way we build websites, but the World Wide Web as an application delivery mechanism, as in terms of like entertainment, like it's kind of here to stay. So web development is a good career option as well, I would say. And that said, not just basic front end websites, because that kind of thing requires less and less skills as the tools get better. But creating custom APIs with custom backend logic and different things like that, no matter the language, it could be Python or JavaScript, that kind of thing will be here for a little while longer before the robots take over. Yeah, PC Man says, a lot of my comp sci friends go crazy over JS. I'll definitely learn it after Python. Go crazy as in they don't like it, or crazy as they like it. But I do recommend it. It's nice. And my one recommendation is that when you start using JavaScript, approach it with a clean slate. Like, it might look like Java or C or different things that you've done before, but it's not. And if you have that mindset that this is a totally different language and it works in a totally different way, you're going to have a good time. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time. Do you think a lot of people's favorite coding language is the one they started with? It might be. Yeah. I mean, they could be biased. Or just the one that they use the most, which makes sense, I guess. My first language might have actually been PHP, and I don't like PHP. Yeah. If you've seen those sites that say, like, disable ad blocker or you've reached your number of article limits per month, you can use the dev tools to remove them. Do hooks in React let you use state and set state in functional stateless components? Yeah, so the use state hook lets you use state inside of a functional component. Yeah, VF Davis says, my first language is JavaScript. I really dislike it. Yeah, like I said, it depends. Did I say something else besides Vue 3? But yeah. Yeah, Academind is actually really good. Yeah, thank you, Sigurd. And they've been releasing a ton of content lately. Like, I think they just released like was it a JavaScript course? And then today a video on like the composition API. But I usually recommend Academind for people wanting to learn Vue. They have a playlist here. Vue.js 2 getting started and Vue.js 2 Vuex basics. I always recommend this. I think at this point the videos are a little old, but they're still relevant. Like, yeah, they're actually still relevant, even though they were made 3 years ago. All the stuff you would learn in this course is completely and totally relevant for Vue.js development. And similarly, they have like a React course. I don't know if they have anything on hooks. React hooks crash course. There you go. General Axios request. Framework agnostic. I don't know if there's a way around it. The question was around setting is loading, but yeah. Would you wait for Vue 3 to come out before learning it? No, I would not. Because you can use the composition API today and get used to it and learn how to use it right and learn how it will make your applications cleaner and your code more reusable so that when Vue 3 officially is out, it's an easy migration. Can't wait for the robot uprising. I think I can wait for it. I don't know. They already have it. Yeah, exactly. Like I've seen a thing where you can take a picture of a wireframe and this AI will build a website with Bootstrap based off of it. Yeah. How do you keep your code base simple when the app starts to begin growing ultra complex? It comes down to, at least in my experience, is trying to figure out where you can reuse things and creating reusable things as often as possible. So as it gets bigger and bigger, like really prevent yourself from copying and pasting. Like the moment you try to copy and paste something, create some sort of utility function, create reusable components that basically gives you a smaller code base because those things are reusable. And if you need to add features to them, those features can be used in multiple places by just updating in one place. Yeah, it's really about like composability, reusability, that kind of thing. When I first started coding, I started with PHP. That lasted about 2 weeks and made me not learn another language for like 3 years. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, and with Vue 3, there is a new way of creating components, but you can still do it the old way. And people like that. So Husky, you got a lot of questions, Mahidra. But Husky is a really cool tool. It runs it runs commit hooks on your repo before it's an easy way to create Git hooks, and Git hooks are tasks that can run when a particular thing happens. I use them at work because we have it set up so that whenever you attempt to make a commit locally, it automatically runs the linter, it runs all of your tests, and if those fail, it doesn't allow the commit to happen. So it's really just like a developer tool. And we have like a pre-commit task to run the tests, run the linter, and if they fail, it won't let you commit. So that's what that's used for. And typically, this is like your first line of defense. So you have Husky installed on the repo locally, which will do those things. And then after you've committed, you'll push up to a branch and make a pull request. And if you have Travis CI and continuous integration set up, that will automatically run the linter and the tests in the cloud. And if those pass, it'll get a little green check mark that says, hey, the tests actually do pass. Once you do a code review, it's good to merge this stuff. Yeah, all these questions that you're asking, they all link together. Should I learn Vue or Svelte? I say learn Vue. Svelte is just so new. It's up and coming, though. But there still has to be like a community built around it for it to get more traction, I think. But it's really cool. But I think if you had to make a bet, I would bet on Vue. Yeah. Do you have a checklist for making projects production ready? Says Britta. I don't. Maybe I should, but I don't. Modular microservice approach is nice for bigger apps, yeah. That shows that I'm learning new things. Yeah, and the thing is, it's like a rabbit hole because like you learned about Docker, and then it took you to like, what is this Travis thing, and then you see that a project has Husky in it. So yeah, it's good. My favorite thing or concept in Electron. I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that you can use web technologies to build desktop apps like this is an Electron app. You may not have realized, but it's an Electron app. It's really cool. And it has transparency, like you can see through it. Yeah, I don't know. Hello, Mo. Welcome. Okay. I don't think Doc is with us anymore, but this is my Memoization implementation. And it sped up the function a little bit. And actually, let's see that. So we saw before that this took 958 milliseconds. Let's run it again to see how long it takes. Because it varies. Yeah, 918 milliseconds. But now if I take this code that has a memoized version of is Palindrome, run the sample tests, it took longer. Let's try it again. It's a little bit faster. The other thing is I can memoize this function, Palindrome. Yeah, so the thing, so this function that I memoized is just big O of in. It has a couple of iterations to like split, reverse, and join the string. But I could probably memoize this function too. Let's do that. So we create our cache. Take this code. And we return a function which takes in the number and the array of palindromes. Throw that code in there. And then we do the cache thing. So we'll say if num, and so this is interesting because we're actually also passing 2 parameters to the function. So our cache would need a way of knowing both of those. However, the way I'm using this is it really shouldn't ever matter that we have a different palindromes array because we really only care about the num. So I'm going to do this. If num in cache, return cache at num. Is string reverse join a little easier? It does the same thing. So splitting a string has about the same complexity as spreading a string into an array. It's big O of in. Let's see. So this calls it recursively. We do need to store the result. Let's do this. So let result. And then each thing we do, we're going to set result. Good morning, Gamer Cat and Echo. Welcome. So that's good. Does it still work? It still works. And then we get here. So at this point, we're really only caching the cases where it's not a palindrome. So that's good. And then if it is a palindrome, we actually have already memoized is palindrome. So that's good. Those if statements need to be else's. That's true, but I know that. Yeah, let's make them else's, and we'll give these bodies. The thing is, they're checking for specific types, so no, it would have set instead of not valid, it would have set it to not found. You're right. Okay, so we need to do this. Cool. And then right here, we can store in the cache as well. So we can say cache at num equals error messages not found. Cool. Let's see what this gets us. $910, $809, $967. It seems like it's more. $914. Cool. And if we run it locally, we should have... I guess I got rid of my log. Oh well, I'm going to attempt it. And then we'll solve one more kata. That's cool. So it passed 61 tests in 953 milliseconds. So that's not bad. There we go. Yep, it looks like they used... Did they use the recursive function? No, so let's look how this person solved it. So they have their original checks. They have their isPalindrome function. They have an iteration from 0 up to the length of the number. And then an iteration from I plus 2 up to the length of the number. Then they create a number, which is a substring of I all the way up to j. So they're basically doing a similar thing, but without recursion. So they're creating every possible combination of numbers and then passing it into isPalindrome. Cool. So this is how you would do the same solution that I did, but without recursion. You basically have like a nested loop. Cool. Same thing. They have a nested loop. There's a lot of weird logic going on there. Oh, this is interesting. They're using a regular expression at some point. Okay, so spread the start and the end. The fact that my original code... Yeah, I guess that's true. So it skipped the if-elses, and it still had to run through them. Yeah, I don't know. It's still plenty fast enough. Like, you could have created, or it's possible to create a solution that would have taken like 12 or 13 seconds, and then Code Wars would have timed out. So, but it was fun to memoize these functions. Do I still need memoization for the nested loops? Yes, because this potentially, and the where memoization helps is when two different substrings or like sub numbers inside of the number are the same. So like in this case, 22 and 22 are the same. So I'm going to check it once when I'm at the beginning, and I'm going to check 22 again when I'm at the end of the number. And that's still going to happen in the nested loops. So memoization could help. And in this case, it wouldn't necessarily be like a function that's memoized. They could just have a cache inside of this one function that they wrote. Oh, that's me. There's not many others. Why did they show my solution? Huh. So this person did something similar. So they created const for their error messages similar to what I did. And then they just have an internal recursive function. Interesting. Is it sorted by speed? Huh. Oh, it's sorted by best practices. Newest? I mean, mine's the newest. I don't know. All right. We did say we're gonna solve one more kata, so I think we're gonna let's catch up on the chat and we'll get into it. Yeah. Thanks for the YouTube sub, CFA. Hello. I think Quokka performance tests are wrong because when I run the same function with the same values 2 times, there are too much of a difference. Oh, wow. Could be a lot of things. Like, are there other things running on your computer? But I think you asked a question about testing the performance of a function. If you care mainly about runtime, you can just do that in JavaScript. So you could do something like this. Create a variable with the start time. That's just date.now. And then run your function. And then you create a variable with the time after it's done. And then you can just do some math. So you can do end minus start divided by 1,000. And that's the number of seconds. There are utilities in Node.js that can do something similar. I'm not familiar with them. There's like utils.performance or something like that. But I didn't mean to do that. Dang it. But that's one way to do it. Basically, the start time before your function, the start time after, and then do some math to figure out the number of seconds it took. Okay, I'll be right back. Cool. All right, I'll catch up on the chat, and then I will attempt to solve this other one that was submitted, playing with digits. But I'm going to solve it really fast because I got to go. It's already 11 p.m. Yeah. Did I drink water? Yeah. Maybe those are better, but developer friendly. No. Imagine maintaining that. No. Is it I mean, is mine faster? I don't know if mine's faster. You could probably come up with a faster solution. You're welcome, Mahidra. Okay. Pranjal is asking how to schedule a notification in React. Like one notification pops up and waits for 4 seconds. All the data kept in Redux. High-level design. All right, let's give you a. I'm gonna try to just do a. I don't know. What are some steps we can take to do this? So, what I think you should have is in the Redux store, have a variable like is in the Redux, have a property on state, and it could, and potentially you could show a notification, but what if you want to show multiple notifications? So like, what if you have different parts of your application and they're all sending toasts? You don't want to just replace the existing one. You may want to stack them and then gradually remove them. So in terms of this, I would say in your Redux store, you have a property on state that is an array of toast messages. And so this array is going to hold each of the messages that need to be displayed in a toast. And what I think you should store is the text of the message. Say includes text of the message, and then also the start time. So the idea is eventually you want to remove those toasts, like after, I don't know, 1 second or 2 seconds. So you can store on the object the time that you started to display that message. And then you could also store the number of seconds it should be there. Or you could store the end time. Basically, you just need to know when that message should be removed from the array so that it doesn't appear in the UI anymore. So that's great. You have this array of all the toast messages that should appear on the page. Initially, it's empty. And so it starts off as nothing, and then when you want to display a toast, push into this array somehow, right? You're going to need a reducer that like spreads it and updates it, but we'll say add a message with the above properties to the array. So, and you could have some sort of action that's like display toast, and that accepts an object that has the text of the message, and maybe you don't need to put the start time in it because inside of your action you could add the start time, and maybe it accepts the text message, the text of the message, and the number of seconds to display. And so that makes it to your reducer, which then puts it into the store, and now you have a nice little object sitting in that array. Then you need some sort of component which can display the toast messages. So we'll say a component. But let me finish this thought though. So dispatch an action with message and number of seconds to display. Cool. So that makes its way into the array. You then have a component that needs to probably live at the top of your application tree, because it's going to need to either absolute position or fixed position those toast messages, because you might want them to appear at the top of the screen, at the bottom of the screen, etc. We'll say a top level component, most likely in app, that is connected to the store and can read that array of toast messages. Cool. And then that top level component will need to render those toast messages. So we'll say like map over array and show each toast message. Most likely like absolute position or fixed position. Basically, this component is going to be connected to the store. It can iterate over that array, and it can show all of those messages on the screen. So that pretty much does it. Now, the one problem that you're dealing with is how do you remove toast messages from the screen when their start time is up. I would probably handle this in the store. You actually might have, or I mean, you could even handle it in this component. So like in the store, have an action that can remove a message from the array. So you might pass in like a message ID or something like that. But basically what you might do is just do like a set timeout, and you have a function that runs once every second to iterate over all of those messages and check to see if any of them need to be removed based on the start time and the number of seconds. And if they do, call an action to remove it from the array. And then because this component is mapped over them and listing all of them, then it should disappear. And you could get fancy with it and have like fade transitions, slide transition on that list. So when a new one appears, it doesn't just show up. It kind of like glides in or fades in or something like that. I don't know. That's how I would solve it. Hopefully that helps, Pranjal. Yeah, and you can check DevTools with the check performance with the DevTools as well. So I haven't used these a lot, but yeah, if you open the DevTools and click on performance, you can start recording. It's going to profile, which means it detects like what's happening on the page and how long it's taking and stuff like that. And then when you click stop, you have access to like screenshots of when things were rendered and how much time was spent rendering versus running like JavaScript code. So in that rundown, there's a little bit of scripting, a little bit of rendering, and mostly idle time. Yeah, time goes by so fast. Netflix video player. Yeah, I made that. Hello, Mo. Loba Loba is saying, which front-end frameworks do you like the most? I like Vue.js the most. It is absolutely my favorite. I don't get to code in it as often as I would like, because I mainly do React at work, but I do like Vue.js. I know a bug in the Chrome Android app. My weekly plan: learn new things, add questions to Notepad, ask all the questions the next CJ live stream. You should try to research the questions as well, but that's great. Okay, let's look at this problem. Do I want to do it? I've been streaming for close to 3 hours. I probably need to go to bed, but it says, some numbers have funny properties. For example, 89 is equal to 8 to the first power plus 9 squared, which is equal to 89 times 1. 695 is 6 squared plus 9 cubed plus 5 to the fourth, which gives us 1390, which is equal to 695 times 2. Okay, this is weird, but given a positive integer written as ABCD being digits, and a positive integer p, we want to find a positive integer k if it exists, such as the sum of the digits of n taken to the successive powers of p is equal to k times n. I see. So because this is 1 squared, so it's to the first power to the second power, it started at 1, so it's times 1. And because this is to the second power to the third to the fourth, it needs to be times 2. Wait. Well, then that doesn't make sense. Positive integer k, if it exists, such as the sum of the digits of n taken to the successive powers of p is equal to k times n. Oh, I see. So after calculating this, we need to check, is that result basically equally divisible by 695? Or equally divisible by n. So because the result of this is equally divisible by... so the result of that is 695 times 2. The fact that 695... this number is evenly divisible by 695. And then similarly, the result here, when we figure out the powers, because that is equally divisible by 46,288, then we've found it. Okay. So in other words, in this case, it will return k, if not return -1. N and p will always be given as strictly positive integers. So what is p? Successive powers of p. I see. Okay, so this is very doable, and because I've been streaming for close to 3 hours, I'm going to do it very fast. But it's doable. Thank you for the follow, Evil. Much appreciated. I could do one. I don't have it planned, but I probably should. Uptime. That's an Alcabot command. You can do uptime. You should get it. There you go. Okay, let's solve this. So I've wrapped my brain around it. Basically, we're given n, which is going to be this, and we are given p, which is going to be the first power that we attempt to do. So let's do it. I'm going to create a file locally called playing with digits. .js. We have our function. We have our tests. And then we can also test it with Oh, that's all the ones. No, we can try it with this. 695 and 2. Which should give us back 2. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's break this down. The first thing we need to do, I think, is basically get each digit of the number, and we need to start raising it to the power here. And we are finding the sum. So let's start off with, we'll say let sum equals 0. So we'll start off at 0, and we basically need to raise each digit to the given power, and then add it to the sum. So there are a lot of different ways to get the digits of a number. I've mentioned this before. You can use maths. There are also maths ways to get like the number of digits in a number, but the easiest way is to just turn it into a string, because we can just determine the length of the string, which is the number of digits. So let's do this. Let's call this string num. And that's going to be in.toString. If we log it, and we'll start up Kata, we see that we actually get the string value 89, 92, 695, 46,288. So it's the same thing, but it's in a string, which actually gives us access to each digit. So I can say like bracket 0, and that'll give me the first the first digit, or bracket 1, and that will give me the second digit, or bracket 2, and that will give me the third digit. So now that I've turned it into a string, I can easily look at each individual digit. So I'm just going to have a for loop that goes from p, which is the first power that we need to raise it to, and goes all the way up to p plus string num.length. So in the case of 89, we need to do 8 raised to the first power plus 9 raised to the second power. So I starts off as 1, and then it needs to go up to 2. So I'm going to say this is less than or equal to the string length. And here we go. VF Davis says the algorithmic way of getting the length of a number without strings would be floor of log base 10 of n. It's definitely doable, but I'm gonna do it this way, and then the other way. So you would use this formula to get the length of the number, and then you would use basically divisions by 10 to get the last digit. Or once you have the length, you could potentially do math to get the first digit, but this is the easiest way. So what we can say here is digit is going to be the string num at that individual index. And what we need to do is we need to add to the sum that digit raised to the power of I. And that's going to give us our sum. So let's just log the sum. And the issue here is our digit is actually a string, and we need it to be a number so that we can raise it to a power. So I am going to parse that as a number. And then let's actually just log the power result. This is wrong. My comparison here is going too far. So we need, like, if I starts off at 2, and then length minus 1. And I think this is the power operator. let's leave that there for now. But the other way to do this is to say math.pow of the number, and then what do you want to raise it to? And for now, let's just log digit and I. So what is the digit and what power are we raising it to? So if we look at this, the digit is 9. Oh, I see. I did the wrong thing. We need to iterate over the digits. Sorry. But we need to increment p on each run. So I actually starts at 0, and I goes less than string number dot length. Yeah, I totally got this wrong. So we actually do need to iterate from 0 to the length of the number because we need to get each individual digit. So that should be fine. And now we have 8 raised to some power. So we need to raise that to the power of p because that's where we start. So we have 8 raised to the first power, and then on the next time around, we need 9 raised to the second power. So what we'll do is we'll just say p++, because we want to increment p, so that way we get the next result on the next time around. So we have 8 raised to the first power plus 9 raised to the second power. Cool. And then this is where we can add it to the sum. Cool. And then here we'll just log the sum. And actually, this actually should work now. Using the exponentiation operator. Though I'm curious why I'm getting 10. 8 to the first power plus 9 squared. Oh, I need to raise it to the power of p. Okay, so now we get the right sum. Whew. You gotta use the right variable. So let's walk through what's happening here. We're iterating over each digit in the number. So this is, in the first case, it's going to be 8, 9. So the first digit here, that's going to be 8. We're going to raise 8 to the power of p. P starts off as 1, so 8 to the power of 1 is 8. We add 8 to the sum. And then we increment p. So p was 1, now it's 2. We go back around, the digit is now 9. 9 raised to the second power is 81. And then 81 plus 8 is 89. And then we're done looping because we accessed each digit, and so now we have the sum. So what we now need to check is we need to take that original in and divide it by the sum result. And if that gives us a whole number, then we return that number. So we'll say div result is going to be in divided by sum. And we're going to log div result. And we can see in the first case we get 1, so that's what we actually want to return. In the second case of 92, we get like 7 point something, which means it's not evenly divisible, which means we should actually return -1. Oh, I have it opposite. It should actually be sum divided by n. Yeah, and then in the case of 695, we get 2. And in the case of digpow, we get 51. So basically, we need to determine if the division result has a remainder. So, I mean, I guess we could do something like this. If sum mod n is equal to 0, then we return sum divided by n. Otherwise, we return -1. And then we don't need to do that. So we check if the remainder of the division is nothing. That means it's evenly divisible and we're not going to get some weird decimal. And then we return sum divided by that number. Otherwise, we return -1. And that should do it. So this is my answer. Let's submit it. And I'm going to go to bed. Disable tests. Oh, so Node version 6 does not support the exponentiation operator, this times thing. So in that case, we would have had to use math.pow. However, I think I can change to version 8. And does that support it? Yeah. So version 8 and above supports the exponentiation operator, which is that times thing. We're going to attempt it. Cool. Passed. Submit final. Cool. So I'm going to catch up on the chat, and then I got to go. Major says, because of your amazing channel, I'm losing my ability to find answers for my questions. I will keep it in mind and will try to find answers myself. Yeah, I've had students in the past that basically run into a similar thing. Like, if I'm just there to tell them all the answers, they don't have to look it up. But if I tell you everything, then you're not learning, and eventually you may not be able to figure out things on your own. So it is good to try, and I don't mind you asking the questions, but it is good to know that you've at least tried to figure things out first. It'll help you in the long run. Yeah. So VF Davis gave us the formula to get the length of the number of digits in the number, and then I see Shatley is saying you can divide by 10 to get the individual digits. Yes, so we talked about that. There's a mathy way. The string way is really the easiest because we can just say, like, give me that digit. Otherwise, if we divide by 10, which will give us the last digit, and then, or we can mod 10, which is the remainder of the division of 10, which gives us the last digit. And then we would have to divide the original number so that it divide the original number by 10 so that it no longer has that last digit, and then we could mod 10 and gradually get each individual digit. The sign up page of Code Wars is not working. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Hello, Shatley. I stream on both YouTube and Twitch. I'm dual streaming. No worries, Mahija. Only like it if you do like it. Yeah. I see Black Deep is saying, do math libraries outside assembly have functions that give remainder and division result in one operation? I haven't worked with any that do that, but it seems like it could, right? Because to find the remainder of the division, you have to actually do the division. So instead of doing this calculation twice, there might probably, and maybe in other languages, there's a better way to do it where you get it all in one go. I don't know. And thanks for the YouTube sub, Arabial. Frank Sinatra was born on this day. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the tip. It's a very popular coding. I think, like, if they don't, I don't know. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is an interesting thing. Like, that's usually what I don't know if that would be considered like piracy or unauthorized access to like information. But I don't know, the way I see it, like, if you're securing things with just front end code, they're not really that secure. So how could you prosecute someone or sue someone for accessing things that they already technically had access to? That said, there are like terms of service on a website that say you shouldn't access it in a certain way. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's exactly right, Icy Black Deep. You can choose someone for anything. So, I mean, a lot of times, terms of, I won't say a lot of times, but there are some terms of services on websites that actually aren't really that enforceable, but they're just there. And if someone does break the rules, they might try to sue them, but it may not hold up in a court. And also depending on what country you live in. So that's something to think about. VF Davis says, bitwise palindromes are fun, by the way. I'm too tired to think about that. All right, I'm going to go. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Before I go, I do want to thank all of my lovely patrons. Here they are, I think. Maybe. Wait a second. There they are. Coding Groden is brought to you by viewers like you, all of these wonderful patrons who support me. Oh, yeah, Eddie is asking, have I watched Kit Boga? I have. Kit Boga is... he does Twitch streams where he does... he talks to scammers on the phone, and he basically just, like, wastes their time. He pretends to be certain characters. It's hilarious. I'm following him. Is he live right now? No, but it's great. Check out Kit Boga, for sure. And let's find someone to raid. Well, there's not many people watching. That's okay, though. If you're watching on YouTube, head on over to Twitch and we'll do a raid, which is where we take all the viewers of one stream and send them to another stream. And this is our raid message. Are you ready? Are you ready? Little seedling, little heart, little seedling. You're welcome, Britta. Thanks for tuning in. Shatley says, I sometimes wonder if the world would be a better place without copyright and patent law. I think the singularity would have... that already happened. I think the singularity would have already happened if there was no copyright and patent law, because copyright and patent law deter innovation, right? They put protections around people using a particular invention or technology, whereas if you didn't do that and everything was just open and anybody could build off of anyone else's work, technology would move a lot faster. Yeah. I've had a long day. Get some rest. Thank you, Wapes. Appreciate it. If it wasn't illegal, nobody would do security and be like, hey, even though code is garbage, you shouldn't do anything because laws. Thank you, V-Monstrous. You have a good night, too. Okay, so that's the raid message. We're going to find somebody to raid. Hopefully somebody with a low viewer count. Oh, Alka's probably streaming, right? Yeah. We might just raid Alka. He's working on Advent of Code. They're working on Advent of Code. Yeah, let's raid Alka. It's the right thing to do. So Alka is a mod of this channel. He's a mod of hundreds of other Twitch channels. He's the mod of Coding Train, if you watch that on YouTube. And he's working on Advent of Code. So if you haven't seen this, this is new problems are released each day. Oh, I've already missed 2. Dang it. New problems are released leading all the way up to Christmas, and Alka has solved each one every day, and currently he's working on number 12, so that'll be fun. Here we go with the raid. Cool. Alrighty, everyone, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, and until next time, here's this.